The Prime Minister reveals the latest on the CWC negotiations. Millions of dollars, that's how much the PSA says the government owes police officers. A mutual visa agreement signed between China and the Bahamas today, plus the government opens a Department of Labor sub-office. Those stories and more coming up. I'm Nakia DeVoe, and this is NB12. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Cable 12 Studios. Here are the stories coming out of the NB12 newsroom this evening. Several companies have already scouted the Bahamas out in preparation for when the telecommunications market liberalizes next year, according to Prime Minister Perry Christie. This as the Prime Minister will soon present ministers with a settlement offer from Cable and Wireless Communications over the Bahamas Telecommunications Company. Christina McNeil has all the details in this report.
In the coming days, the Prime Minister is expected to present Cabinet with a share proposal from CWC, the next step in BTC take-back talks. Christie telling reporters that he hopes to have that meeting with government ministers before Christmas to get the ball rolling.
The question now is the final outcome being presented to my Cabinet, which I propose to do before the end of the year. So that we could decide before the end of the year what our position is, whether we accept or we don't. I have not spoken to my Cabinet. They have given me certain directions in terms of what would be generally acceptable, and I must now return to that.
CWC purchased 51% stake in BTC in 2011 amid widespread controversy from the then opposition Progressive Liberal Party and the BTC unions. The Christie administration pledged to regain majority control of the company and began negotiations with that in mind upon taking office. Christie says those negotiations are complete, and he paid a courtesy call on the incoming CWC chairman Phil Bentley and outgoing chairman Tony Rice during a recent trip to London. He adds that CWC seems at ease with the reality of the liberalization of the telecommunications market next year. In fact, Christie says government has already been approached by Digicel and Virgin Mobile, which are seeking to enter the market once it opens up.
We have been limited in our dealing with would-be candidates for liberalization because the agreement between Cable and Wireless and the government really indicates that nothing should take place before the 1st of April 2014. So we try to avoid any conflicts with the terms of that agreement. But it is understood that that Digicel, who had already approached IRCA and had already been given some kind of permission by IRCA to do certain things here in the Bahamas, and other companies have come looking around the Bahamas in preparation for liberalization. One is Virgin, that I'm told of, that's a British company in particular, and I know that, and so I'll just call that name. The others have approached me, but not formally.
Back in June, the Prime Minister said government was considering extending the liberalization of the cellular market in exchange for the reacquisition of the 2% of BTC's shares. That idea was shot down by BTC's government-appointed board director, Leon Williams, who said the country would be the laughingstock of the region if it extends the company's cellular monopoly for a few more years. BTC's monopoly is set to end in March 2014. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
3 months after the government's 12-hour shift initiative was first announced, the Police Staff Association says some officers have yet to be paid for their overtime work. This morning they called for a resolution. Dana Smith reports.
Executive Chairman Dwight Smith said officers are still owed millions of dollars in unpaid salary stemming from the 12-hour shift initiative. After outlining a variety of problems this morning, Smith called on government officials to sit down with the association and discuss the issues.
I haven't done that calculation, but It all depends. You see, because now you remember with compensation, we talk about a few things with compensation. The labor law speaks to overtime. Overtime is time and a half. So you look at the different various ranks in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and then you go, each of them have different salary scales. So you'll have to multiply that. The only Nassau base I understand was on the extra the extra hours, and so maybe we're probably in the millions.
The government's 12-hour shift initiative was first announced by National Security Minister Bernard Nottage back in September and was met with immediate resistance from the association. At the time, Smith had criticized the shifts for leaving officers fatigued. This morning, Smith claimed some officers have still not been paid for their work. He said he understands the financial constraints of the government and is only asking to meet with officials to discuss a resolution to the issue. Even if officers are unable to be paid in full, Smith said, avenues such as vacation time can be considered.
This is the whole thing of getting around the table. We know that money is tight. Well, so we've been told, but when I hear $4.3 million going that way and $1.3 million going that way, and the police is still into the point of nothing, what I'm saying is that we could have sat around the table. A portion of that the government may not have been able to do, but Satan, that would be on time back.
Smith said the alleged lack of payment contributes to the already strained finances of some officers.
Of course, there were still bills. Uniforms had to be cleaned. Most single parents had to find a daycare center. They don't wait for no month end. That's what you do the school for. But when you find a daycare center to do after hours, the minute you come to pick up your child, they want your money. I don't know if they keep your child, but they want their money. And so officers had to find monies. There's a lot of things that, that came into play when you force officers to work extra time. That's more money out of their pockets.
It was in the wake of the 12-hour shift's announcement that Smith had threatened legal action in demanding compensation for officers. This morning, he said that avenue is still an option. But ultimately, he said, the association just wants to sit at the negotiation table with the government.
The association at this point in time, yes, we still consult with our attorney, Mr. Monroe, and we've asked him to direct a few letters down to the ministry. Certainly there's a lot of action that we can take to the court, but why do we have to go through a court? Why can't we just sit around the table?
Smith said monies for unpaid work is just one of many issues the association has been agitating for months. But he said he is hopeful government officials will meet with the association. Reporting for MB12, I'm Dana Smith.
In other news, government today signed an agreement with the People's Republic of China for a mutual visa exemption that will allow Bahamian and Chinese passport holders to travel unrestricted between the two countries for up to 30 days. Paige McCartney has the details.
Upon signing the agreement, Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell said it serves as a milestone in diplomatic relations of the two countries while also strengthening the cornerstone of the nation's economy. On hand for the signing was China's Vice Foreign Minister Xi Hengsheng, who said the signing was an important step for both countries, and he projected it would entice more Chinese visitors and investors to come to the Bahamas.
China's very group travel oriented, and so they're trying to focus on that, bring some attention to bringing some group business from over there to here. There was some discussion with the previous ambassador to China to this country about actually having direct flights from Beijing to Nassau. And the question is whether or not there's sufficient traffic to bear Nassau alone, or whether Nassau has to be a hub and then on to the rest of the Caribbean. I think the Americans have actually been sort of informally consulted as to whether this presents an issue, and I'm advised that it does not. So all those sorts of things have been put in place to sort of promote the group business from China to here.
将会呢，在未来啊，能够取得更长足的进步。刚才克里斯蒂总理讲到，巴哈马它的优越。
According to Mitchell, this agreement is the first of many technical and economic ties to be explored by the two countries in the future. This agreement comes on the heels of other Chinese investments and agreements with the Bahamas. Just last year, the China-gifted Thomas A. Robinson Stadium was completed, and the China Construction Company recently completed the Airport Gateway project. Additionally, the Chinese-invested Baha Mar project is slated to open late next year. Bahamar Senior Vice President of Administration and External Affairs Robert Sands called the agreement a bold, aggressive, and progressive step.
This treaty will not only give us access to individuals who live in Asia, but Chinese individuals who live in other parts of the world as well, whether they be in the UK, whether they be in Canada, whether they be in Latin and South America. Just gives us access to this ever-growing market that has proven to be pivotal in terms of tourism success in multiple countries around the world.
Sands added that the prospects for Bahamar and the Bahamas look good with this new agreement, considering that Chinese visitors are prolific gamblers who on average spend 3 times as long in a visiting country than North Americans.
China plays a pivotal role in this from 2 market segments. One, gaming, which they're perhaps the largest contributors to gaming, certainly in Asia, when you look at Macau, Singapore, other parts of the world, Australia. And we consider this opportunity for Bahama an opportunity to begin to penetrate that market to populate our gaming industry here in the Bahamas.
This treaty takes effect 30 days after the last procedural notice is given, and Mitchell said that should take place sometime in mid-2014. For NB12, I'm Paige McCartney.